The rain hammered against the old farmhouse windows like angry fists. Tom Bradley pulled his worn jacket tighter as he stepped onto the porch, squinting into the darkness. 3 years. 3 long years since Dad passed, and the ranch was still. Barely hanging on by a thread, lightning split the sky, illuminating the muddy yard where his truck sat half buried in the muck. The storm had been building all day, and now it was unleashing everything it had. Tom should have been relieved. After months of drought, his cattle desperately needed this water. But all he could think about was the letter sitting on his kitchen table. Final notice. 30 days to pay what he owed, or lose everything his family had built over 4 generations. He grabbed his flashlight and headed toward the barn. The cattle. It would be spooked, and he needed to make sure they were safe. Each step was a battle against the mud that seemed determined to swallow his boots. The wind howled through the fence posts, making the whole world sound like it was coming apart. Tom? I'd always thought he'd figure things out. When Dad got sick, he'd been so sure the medical bills would somehow work themselves out. When the drought hit, he'd believed the rains would come in time. When the bank started calling, he'd convinced himself he could find a way to make the payments. But hope was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore. The beam of his flashlight danced across the pasture as he made his way to the fence line. That's when he saw something that made him stop dead in his tracks. A figure was stumbling through the mud about 50 yards away, moving like someone who was hurt or lost. At first, Tom thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Who would be out here in the middle of nowhere during a storm like this? But as another flash of lightning lit up the sky, he saw her clearly. A woman in what looked like a long white dress, her hair whipping around her face in the wind. "Hey!" Tom called out, but his voice was swallowed by the thunder. The woman kept moving, but she was clearly struggling. Her dress was torn and muddy, and she seemed to be favoring one leg. Tom broke into a run, his boots sliding in the slick grass. "Ma'am, are you okay?" She turned toward his voice, and in the glow of his flashlight, Tom saw her face. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair plastered to her head and makeup streaked down her cheeks. What caught his attention most was her eyes. They held the kind of fear he'd seen in cornered animals. "Please," she said, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Just need to get away from here." That's when Tom noticed what she was wearing. Wasn't just any white dress. It was a wedding gown, complete with a veil that was now tangled in the barbed wire fence. The fabric was torn in several places, and he could see scratches on her arms where thorns had caught her. "You're hurt," Tom said, stepping closer. "Let me help you." The woman shook her head frantically. "No, you don't understand. He'll find me. I can't let him find me." Before Tom could ask who she was talking about, her knees buckled. He caught her just as she collapsed, her body going limp in his arms. She was soaked through and shivering badly. Whatever had happened to her, she'd been out in this storm for a while. Tom didn't hesitate. He lifted her up and carried her toward the house, fighting against the wind and rain every step of the way. She was lighter than he expected, and something about the way she curled against his chest made his heart ache. This woman was running from something, and she was scared to death. By the time he got her inside, she was barely conscious. Tom laid her down on the old couch in his living room and grabbed every blanket he could find. The farmhouse wasn't much to look at. Dad had built it in the 70s, and Tom had never had the money to fix it up properly. But it was warm and dry, which was what mattered right now. "Can you hear me?" Tom asked, kneeling beside the couch. Her eyes fluttered open. They were green, he noticed, the color of spring grass after a good rain. "Where am I?" she whispered. "You're safe. This is my ranch. I'm Tom Bradley." He studied her face, looking for signs of serious injury. "What's your name?" She was quiet for so long that Tom thought she might have passed out again. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Anna. Anna Chen." "Okay, Anna, you're hurt pretty bad. I think I should take you to the hospital." "No." The word came out sharp and panicked. She tried to sit up, but Tom gently pressed her back. "Down. Hey, it's okay. Nobody's going to hurt you here." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. I can't go to a hospital. They'll call someone, and then he'll know where I am." Tom felt his jaw tighten. He'd heard that tone before. From his sister, when she was married to that worthless husband of hers? Fear mixed with shame, like somehow what happened was her fault. "Who are you running from, Anna?" She closed her eyes, and for a moment Tom thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. "I was supposed to get married. Today, 3 hours ago, actually." She gestured weakly at her ruined dress. "But I couldn't do it. I couldn't marry him." Tom waited, sensing there was more to the story. David seemed perfect at first. Successful businessman, nice car, nice house. My parents loved him. Anna's voice cracked. But after we got engaged, everything changed. He started making decisions for me. What I wore, who I could see, where I could go. He said it was because he loved me and wanted to protect me. Okay, the pieces were starting to fall into place. Tom had seen enough controlling men to recognize the pattern. Tonight, right before the ceremony, I overheard him talking to his business partner. He was laughing about how he'd finally have control over my trust fund after we were married.
Ow.
I was too naive to understand money, so he'd handle everything for me. Anna's hands clenched into fists. That's when I realized I wasn't getting a husband. I was getting a warden.
Ow.
Tom felt anger building in his chest. Not at Anna, but at the man who had tried to trap her. "So you ran." I ran. Right out the back door of the church in my wedding dress. I took his car because mine was already at the reception venue. I just drove and drove until I ran out of gas about 5 miles from here. Then I started walking, and the storm hit. Looked around the simple living room with its mismatched furniture and faded wallpaper. I know this probably seems crazy to you. A woman in a wedding dress showing up in the middle of a storm? Tom shook his head. The only crazy thing is that you stayed engaged to him as long as you did. It takes real courage to walk away from something. Like that? For the first time since he'd found her, Anna almost smiled. My parents are going to be furious. The wedding cost $40,000. Your parents should be proud of you for having the strength to leave. Anna studied his face in the lamplight. Why are you being so kind to me? You don't even know. Tom was quiet for a moment, thinking about his own struggles. Here was this woman who'd given up everything she knew to escape a bad situation. She was worried about imposing on a stranger. Because everybody deserves a chance to start over, he said finally. And because sometimes the right thing to do is the only thing to do. Outside, the storm was finally starting to ease. But inside the old farmhouse, Tom Bradley was looking at Anna Chen and wondering if maybe, just maybe, both of their luck was about to change. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows as Tom scrambled eggs on his old gas stove. He'd been up since 5, same as always, but today felt different. For the first time in months, he wasn't alone in the house. Anna was still sleeping, in the spare bedroom, and he'd been trying to move quietly so he wouldn't wake her. She'd been at the ranch for 3 days now, and Tom was amazed at how quickly she'd started to fit in. Yesterday, she'd insisted on helping with the morning chores despite his protests. Watching her learn to collect eggs from the chickens had been something else. She'd approached the task like she was solving a puzzle, carefully observing which hens were friendlier before attempting to reach under them. "You're up early." Anna's voice came from behind him. Tom turned to see her standing in the doorway, wearing one of his old flannel shirts over a pair of jeans they'd picked up from the thrift store in town. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and without all the makeup from her wedding day, she looked younger. More natural. "Ranch life starts early," Tom said, dividing the eggs between 2 plates. "How'd you sleep? Is it better than I have?" In months, Anna sat down at the small kitchen table. "I keep forgetting how quiet it is out here. No traffic, no neighbors arguing, no constant noise." Tom poured coffee into 2 mismatched mugs and joined her at the table. "You get used to it? Sometimes I think the silence is the only thing keeping me sane." Anna took a sip of her coffee and made a face. "This is terrible." "Yeah, I know," Tom laughed. "I'd buy the cheapest stuff at the store. Got fancy coffees, not really in the budget." Something in his tone made Anna look at him more carefully. Over the past few days, she'd noticed things. The way he checked the mailbox with a worried expression, how he'd turn off lights religiously whenever he left a room. The fact that there was barely any food in the refrigerator. "Tom, can I ask you something personal?" He tensed slightly. "Are you in some kind of financial trouble?" Tom set down his coffee mug harder than necessary. "What makes you think that?" "I worked as a financial analyst before I got engaged. I notice things. It's like how you've been eating mostly rice and beans since I got here. And yesterday when the mail came, you looked like you wanted to throw it away without opening it." Tom was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at his fields. Anna waited, sensing he was wrestling with whether to trust her. "My dad died 3 years ago," he said finally. "Cancer. The medical bills wiped out everything we had saved. Then we had 2 years of drought, and I had to sell off most of the cattle just to keep the lights on. How bad is it?" I got up and walked to the counter, where a stack of unopened envelopes sat like a pile of accusations. He grabbed one and tossed it in front of Anna. "Final notice from the bank. I owe them $180,000. I've got 27 days to pay it, or they take the ranch." Anna opened the letter and read it, her expression growing more serious. "Tom, this is a foreclosure notice. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's not your problem," he said, his voice tight. "You've got your own troubles to worry about. Have you applied for any agricultural assistance programs? Emergency farm loans?" Tom shook his head. "Dad always said we'd handle our own problems. He never believed in taking handouts." Anna stood up and walked to where Tom was leaning against the counter. "This isn't a handout. These are programs designed to help family farms survive exactly this kind of situation. Your dad sounds like he was a proud man, but pride doesn't pay the bills. Even if I wanted to apply, it's too late now. Those programs take months to process." Anna was quiet for a moment, thinking, "What if I helped you? I could look over your financial records, see if there are any options we're missing." Tom shook his head. "Anna, I can't ask you to do that. You're dealing with your own mess. You didn't ask," I offered. She touched his arm gently. "Tom, you saved me. You gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere else to go."
What?
There was something in her voice that made Tom look at her more carefully. "What aren't you telling me?" Anna bit her lip, a habit Tom had noticed she had when she was nervous. "There's something I haven't told you about my situation." "What?" "The trust fund David was trying to get control of. It's not small. My grandmother left me $2 million when she died. It's been sitting in an account for 5 years because I never knew what to do with it." Tom felt like the air had been knocked out of him. $2 million. I know it sounds like a lot, but David had convinced me that I was too irresponsible to handle that kind of money. He said I needed someone to manage it for me, someone who understood investments and business. Anna's voice got bitter. What he really meant was that he wanted to control it. Tom walked over to the window, trying to process what she'd just told him. $2 million. More money than he'd ever seen in his entire life. Money that could save the ranch 10 times over. "Anna, I can't let you use your inheritance to bail me out. That's not right." "Why not? It's my money, isn't it? 'Cause you barely know me. 'Cause you've got your own life to figure out. Because ... Tom struggled to find the words. "Because what?" "'Cause I don't want you to think I'm like him, like David, using you for what you can give me." Anna walked over to stand beside him at the window. "Tom, in the 3 days I've been here, you've treated me like an equal. You've asked my opinion about things. You've listened when I talk. You've never once made me feel stupid or helpless." She paused. "David used to explain things to me like I was a child. He'd pat my head and tell me not to worry about complicated stuff. I'd never do that to you. I know. That's why I trust you." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the cattle grazing in the pasture. Anna had grown to love this view. There was something peaceful about it that she'd never experienced in her old life. "There's something else," Anna said quietly. "What?" "I think David's looking for me. Yesterday, when I was in town with you, I saw a black sedan parked across from the grocery store. The same kind of car his security people drive." Tom felt his stomach tighten. "Are you sure? Pretty sure?" And when we came out of the store, it was gone. Anna, if he finds you here, I know. That's another reason I want to help you save this place. If I'm going to stay hidden, I need somewhere safe to hide. In this ranch, Tom. It feels like home in a way nowhere else ever has. Tom looked at her, seeing the determination in her. Green eyes, you really want to stay here? You'll have me? I know it's not what either of us planned, but maybe that's okay. Maybe sometimes the best things happen when you're not planning them. Tom thought about the empty house, the lonely evenings, the weight of carrying all his problems alone. Then, he thought about Anna's laugh when she'd successfully gotten an egg from the grumpiest hen, about how she'd listened to his stories about his father without trying to fix everything, about how she'd made him feel less alone for the first time in years. Okay, he said finally. Let's figure this out together. Anna smiled. And Tom realized that maybe, just maybe, both of them had found exactly what they'd been looking for without even knowing they were looking for it. Tom stared at the letter in his hands, reading the same words over and over. Final notice. 48 hours. $180,000. The paper shook slightly, and he realized his hands were trembling. This is it, he whispered too. Himself in the empty kitchen, Anna had gone to town to pick up groceries, insisting she wanted to contribute something to their daily routine. Tom had been grateful for the alone time to open the mail, but now he wished she was here. The walls of the farmhouse seemed to be closing in on him. For generations of Bradleys had worked this land. His great-grandfather had cleared the first fields by hand. His grandfather had survived the Dust Bowl by sheer stubbornness. His father had modernized the operation and turned it into something to be proud of. And now Tom was going to be the one to lose it all? He walked out onto the front porch, looking across the acres that had shaped his entire life. Every fence post, every gate, every tree held a memory. The old oak where he'd built a treehouse as a kid. The pasture where his father had taught him to ride. The barn where he'd had his first kiss with Jenny Miller during a church social when he was 16. All of it would belong to the bank in 2 days. The sound of gravel crunching under tires pulled him from his thoughts. Anna's borrowed car was coming up the drive, but something was wrong. She was driving fast, too fast for the winding dirt road. The car skidded to a stop in front of the house, and Anna jumped out, her face pale. Tom, we have a problem. What's wrong? There were 2 men at the grocery store asking questions about me. They showed my picture to Mrs. Henderson at the checkout. They know I'm in the area. Tom felt ice settle in his stomach. Are you sure? It was David's people? Positive. One of them was wearing the same kind of suit his security team always wore. Expensive, but trying to look casual. Anna grabbed his arm. Mrs. Henderson told them she'd never seen me before, but I don't think they believed her. Okay, we need to think about this. Maybe you should leave town for a while. Go somewhere he can't find you. Anna shook her head. Where? Yes. I don't have anywhere else to go, Tom. And even if I did, he'd just keep looking. Yes. David doesn't give up. On things he thinks belong to him? They stood on the porch in tense silence, both lost in their own worried thoughts. That's when Tom noticed the black sedan parked on the road about half a mile away. It had a clear view of the ranch entrance. Anna, he said quietly, nodding toward the car. She followed his gaze and sucked in a sharp breath. That's them. Long do you think we have? Not long. David's probably trying to figure out the legal way to force me back. But if he gets impatient, ... double quotes Anna trailed off, but Tom understood. Rich men who were used to getting their way had resources that ordinary people didn't. Tom felt something shift inside him. This woman had become important to him over the past week. More important than he'd expected. The thought of her being dragged back to a life that terrified her made him angry in a way he hadn't felt since his father's death. What if there was a way to protect you? He said suddenly. What do you mean? Tom was quiet for a moment, an idea forming in his mind. It was crazy, but then again their whole situation was crazy. Anna, what if we got married? She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. What? Think about it. If you're my wife, David can't claim any legal authority over you. Your money would be protected. And, Tom hesitated, then plunged ahead. And you could help me save the ranch. Anna sat down heavily on the porch steps. Tom, that's insane. You need legal protection from David? I need money to save my family's land? We both need somewhere safe to figure out what comes next? You're talking about a marriage of convenience. It's like something out of an old movie. Maybe that's exactly what we both need right now? Anna was quiet for a long time, staring out at the fields. Tom sat down beside her, waiting. He could almost see her mind working, weighing options, calculating risks. It wouldn't be a real marriage, she said finally. It would be real enough to protect you, and real enough to let you use your money to help without it looking like charity. What about you? What do you get out of it besides saving the ranch? Tom thought about the question seriously. Honestly, I get a partner. Someone who understands business better than I do. Someone who might be able to help me turn this place into something that could actually make money instead of just surviving. And what do I get besides protection from David? You get a chance to build something, to be part of something that matters, to make decisions about your own life without someone else controlling everything. Anna looked at him, studying his face. You really think this could work? I think we're both desperate enough to try anything. Tom, there's something you need to understand. If we do this, David will never stop trying to break us up. Investigate you, try to find dirt on you, make your life miserable. Let him try. I've got nothing to hide, and I'm not afraid of some city businessman. Anna almost smiled at that. You've never met David. He's not just any businessman. He's the kind of man who always gets what he wants. Hell, he's never met a stubborn rancher. Before? They sat in silence again, both of them aware that they were talking about making a decision that would change everything. In the distance, the black sedan hadn't moved. If we did this, Anna said slowly, it would have to be soon. Like really soon. Tonight. David's people are here, which means he knows where I am. If we're going to do it, we need to. Do it before he can stop us. Tom felt his heart start to race. The courthouse in Miller County does emergency marriages. My cousin got married there last year when his girlfriend was being deployed overseas. That's 2 hours away. We could make it by midnight if we left now. Anna turned to look at him directly. Tom, are you serious about this? Because once we do it, there's no going back. David will make sure of that. Tom thought about his father, about the ranch, about the life he'd always imagined for himself. None of it had included a desperate midnight wedding to a woman he'd known. For a week. But then he thought about Anna's laugh when she'd figured out how to milk the old cow. About the way she'd listened to his stories about his father. About how right it felt to have someone to share meals with again. Anna, I can't promise you love. I can't promise you a fairy tale ending. But I can promise you respect. I can promise you partnership. And I can promise you that I'll never try to control you or make you feel small. Anna was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up and held out her hand to him. Okay, Tom Bradley, let's go get married. Tom stood and shook her hand, feeling like he was jumping off a cliff and hoping there was water below. Just so we're clear, Anna said as they headed toward the truck. If this turns out to be the worst decision either of us ever made, we're in it together. Wouldn't have it any other way, Tom replied, and surprised himself by meaning it, as they drove away from the ranch toward an uncertain future. Neither of them looked back at the black sedan. They were too busy looking forward toward a dawn. That might bring either salvation or a disaster, but would definitely bring change. The wedding certificate sat on the kitchen table like proof of the strangest night of their lives. Tom poured coffee into 2 cups and tried to wrap his head around the fact that he was now married to a woman he'd known for barely 2 weeks. The justice of the peace had been half asleep when they'd knocked on his door at 1 a.m, but $50 cash had convinced him to perform the ceremony in his pajamas and bathrobe. So, Anna said, wrapping her hands around her coffee, Mugga, I guess we should talk about how this is going to work. Tom nodded, suddenly feeling awkward around the woman who was now legally his wife. I figure you can keep the spare bedroom for as long as you want. Nothing has to change between us just because we signed some papers. What about the ranch? The bank payment? I called them first thing this morning. Money transfer went through, and they're processing the payment today. The ranch is safe. Tom shook his head in amazement. Still can't believe you did that for me. We did it for each other, remember? Anna reminded him. Now we need to figure out how to make this place actually profitable, so we're not just surviving but thriving. Over the next few weeks, Tom discovered that Anna wasn't just smart with money, she was brilliant. He handled the daily ranch work, she dove into the business side of things with an enthusiasm that amazed him. She spent hours on the computer, researching markets, analyzing trends, and connecting with potential buyers. "Tom, look at this," Anna said one evening, spreading papers across the dinner table. "There's a huge demand for grass-fed organic beef in the city. We could get twice the price we're getting now if we certified the ranch as organic. That takes time and money to get certified." "I know, but it's an investment. And look at this. There are government grants available for farmers who want to convert to sustainable practices, could get funding to help with the transition." Tom studied the paperwork Anna had printed out. His father had always been suspicious of government programs, but looking at the numbers, Tom couldn't argue with the logic. "You really think this could work? I think we could turn this place into something special. But it would mean changes. Big changes. Those changes started small." Anna convinced Tom to fence off a section of pasture to start rotational grazing, which would improve the soil and grass quality. She arranged for a soil test that revealed deficiencies they could fix. With organic amendments, she even figured out how to apply for a program that would pay them to plant trees along the creek to prevent erosion. But the biggest change was how they worked together. Tom had been used to making all the decisions alone, but Anna had ideas and opinions about everything. At first, it was frustrating. She questioned methods his family had used for decades and suggested alternatives he'd never considered. "Why do you feed the cattle at the same time every day?" Anna asked one morning, as they walked toward the barn. "Because that's how it's always been done. Routine is good for them. But what if we let them graze more naturally? I read that cattle are healthier when they can follow their instincts about when and where to eat." Tom wanted to dismiss the idea, but something about the way Anna approached problems made him listen. She didn't criticize what he was doing wrong. She looked for ways to make things better. 3 months after their wedding, their first real test came. David's lawyers showed up with papers claiming the marriage was fraudulent and demanding an annulment. Tom and Anna had to appear in court to defend their relationship. "Your Honor," David's lawyer said, "this marriage is clearly a sham. My client's former fiancé married this man solely to gain access to her trust fund and to spite my client." The judge looked skeptical as he reviewed the paperwork. "Mrs. Bradley, is it true that you married your husband primarily for financial reasons?" Anna stood up, and Tom was struck by how calm and confident she looked. "Your Honor, I married Tom Bradley because he treats me as an equal partner, because he respects my opinions and values my contributions, because he has never once tried to control me or make decisions for me." She glanced at David, who was sitting in the front row looking furious. "That's more than I can say for my former relationship. And Mr. Bradley, why did you marry Mrs. Bradley?" Tom stood, feeling less comfortable in the formal courtroom setting. "Because she needed protection from a man who was trying to control her life and her money. And because she believed in me and my ranch when nobody else did, she's made me a better farmer and a better man." The judge asked them several more questions about their living arrangements, their future plans, and their relationship. Tom found himself talking about how Anna had taught him to see his ranch through new eyes, how she'd helped him understand that tradition and progress didn't have to be enemies. Motion for annulment denied. The judge finally said, "This court finds that the marriage between Mr. and Mrs. Bradley is legal and valid." As they left the courthouse, David cornered them in the parking lot. "This isn't over, Anna," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "You think you can embarrass me like this and just walk away?" Tom stepped between David and Anna. "Actually, it is over. Anna made her choice, and you need to respect that." David looked Tom up and down dismissively. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, farm boy." "Neither do you," Tom replied calmly. After that day, something shifted between Tom and Anna. The marriage that had started as a practical arrangement began to feel like something more. They still slept in separate bedrooms, but they spent their evenings planning together, dreaming together, building something together. The moment Tom realized his feelings had changed, came on a rainy spring morning. They were in the barn helping deliver a calf from a cow that was having complications. Anna was right there beside him, her sleeves rolled up, following his instructions without hesitation. "There," Tom said, as the calf finally emerged, healthy and breathing. "That's how it's done." Hannah was grinning, covered in mud, and who knows what else, but she looked beautiful to Tom. "That was incredible. Can't believe we just helped bring a life into the world." "We make a good team," Tom said, and he meant it in every possible way. Anna looked at him, and something passed between them that had nothing to do with business partnerships or marriages of convenience. It had everything to do with two people who had found something unexpected in each other. "Yes," Anna said softly, "we do." That night, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Anna asked the question that had been hanging between them for weeks. "Tom, what are we doing here, really? What do you mean? This started as a way for both of us to solve our problems. But somewhere along the way it became something else, didn't it?" Tom was quiet for a moment, watching the cattle graze. "In the distance? Yeah, it did. So what do we do about that?" Tom turned to look at her, this woman who had crashed into his life during a storm and somehow made everything better. "I guess we figure it out as we go. Together." Anna smiled and moved closer to him on the porch swing. "I'd like that." As the sun set over their land, and it really did feel like their land now, Tom realized that sometimes the best things in life came when you weren't looking for them. He'd thought he was saving his ranch, but maybe he'd been saving something much more important. Maybe he'd been saving himself. 2 years after that stormy night, when Anna first stumbled onto his land, Tom stood in the same spot where he'd found her, but everything had changed. The pastures were greener now, dotted with healthy cattle that grazed peacefully in the morning. Son, where once there had been only struggle and desperation, there was now something that looked remarkably like success. "The Peterson family will be here at 10, Anna called from the house, checking her tablet. "And the Williams kids are coming for their riding lesson this afternoon." Tom smiled as he watched his wife coordinate their busy schedule. The transformation in Anna over the past 2 years had been remarkable. The scared woman in the torn wedding dress had become a confident business owner who could negotiate with suppliers in the morning and teach city kids how to milk cows in the afternoon. Their ranch had become something neither of them had originally imagined. What started as a desperate attempt to save the family land had evolved into Bradley Family Ranch, a working farm that combined sustainable agriculture with education and tourism. Families from the city came to stay in the renovated guest cabins. Anna had designed experiencing real ranch life, while Tom and Anna taught them about where their food actually came from. "Tom, you need to see this," Anna said, walking toward him with a piece of paper in her hand. "What now?" The article in Country Living magazine came out. "Look at this." Tom read over her shoulder as Anna held up the magazine. There was a full page photo of their ranch with the headline, "From Desperate to Thriving. How one couple transformed a failing ranch into a sustainable success story." "Listen to this part," Anna said, reading aloud. "Tom and Anna Bradley proved that sometimes the best business partnerships come from the most unexpected circumstances. Their innovative approach to combining traditional ranching with ecotourism has created a model that other struggling farms are beginning to follow." Tom shook his head in amazement. "Remember when you first suggested the tourism idea? Thought you'd lost your mind. You said city people would never want to get their hands dirty. Shows what I know." The tourism part of their business had started small. Anna had suggested they offer weekend stays for families who wanted to experience ranch life. Tom had been skeptical, but within 6 months, they were booked solid. There was something about the simple rhythm of farm life that appealed to people who spent their days staring at computer screens. Kids who had never seen a cow up close delighted in collecting eggs and learning to ride horses. Parents who were stressed from city life found peace in watching sunsets from the porch and eating meals made from food they'd helped harvest. And Tom discovered he enjoyed teaching people about sustainable farming almost as much as he enjoyed doing it. "Bradley." A small voice interrupted his thoughts. Tom turned to see Lucy Peterson, an 8-year-old who had been coming to the ranch with her family for almost a year. She was holding a basket of eggs, beaming with pride. "I got 12 eggs today, and Henrietta." Didn't try to peck me even once?" "That's wonderful, Lucy," Anna said, crouching down to the girl's level. "Henrietta's starting to trust you? That means you're becoming a real farmhand." Lucy practically glowed at the praise. Tom had watched this scene play out dozens of times, but it never got old. Anna had a gift for making every child feel special and capable.
Could Mr. Tom teach
"Me how to brush the horses today?" Lucy asked. "If you finish all your other chores first," Tom said. "Horses are a big responsibility. I will, I promise." As Lucy ran off to help her parents with the garden work, Anna moved closer to Tom. "You know what I love most about this?" "What?" "Watching kids discover they're capable of more than they thought." Lucy was terrified of the chickens when she first came here. Now look at her. Tom put his arm around Anna's shoulders, something that had become natural over the past year. Their relationship had evolved slowly, carefully, built on friendship and respect before growing into something deeper. There had been no dramatic moment of realization, just a gradual understanding that they had become essential to each other. "Anna, there's something I want to tell you. What, I love you?" Anna looked up at him in surprise. They had become closer. Over the months, sharing quiet moments and building a life together, but neither had spoken those words before. Tom, ... "I know this wasn't how either of us planned it. I know we started this for all the wrong reasons. But somewhere along the way, it became right. You became right." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too. I think I have for a while now, but I was scared to say it." "Scared of what?" "Scared that it might change things between us. What we have works so well. I didn't want to risk it." Tom cupped her. "Face in his hands, Anna. What we have is love. We've been living it and building it every day. Saying it out loud doesn't change anything except making it official." Their first real kiss happened right there in the pasture, the cattle as witnesses and the morning sun warming their faces. It was nothing like the desperate kisses in movies. It was gentle and sure and felt like coming home. Well, it's about time. They broke apart to find Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store standing nearby with a huge grin on her face. She had become one of their regular suppliers, bringing fresh produce from other local farms for their guests. Mrs. Henderson laughed, embarrassed. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough to see two people finally admit what the whole county's been talking about for months." "The whole county?" Tom asked. "Honey, we've all been watching you two dance around each other like nervous teenagers. It's been the most entertainment we've had in years." 6 months later, Anna stood in the bathroom of their farmhouse staring at a small plastic stick that would change everything again. 2 pink lines. She was pregnant. Tom was in the barn working on a broken gate, whistling while he worked. Anna watched him through the window, this man who had become her partner in every sense of the word. How would he react to the news that their family was about to grow? "Tom," she called, stepping out onto the porch. "Yeah, can you come here for a minute?" Something in her tone made him drop his tools and walk quickly toward the house. "Everything okay?" Anna held up the pregnancy test, too nervous to speak. Tom stared at it for a moment, processing what he was seeing. Then his face broke into the biggest smile Anna had ever seen. "Really? Really?" Tom picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "We're having a baby. Are you happy?" Akana asked as he set her down. "Happy, Anna? I'm over the moon." "Are you happy?" "Terrified and thrilled and excited and worried all at the same time. That sounds about right." 9 months later, their daughter was born during a spring thunderstorm, just like the storm that had brought Anna to the ranch. They named her Hope. Because that's what she represented, hope that had grown from desperation, love that had bloomed from necessity, and a future that was brighter than either of them had dared to imagine. As Tom held his daughter for the first time, with Anna sleeping peacefully beside him and thunder rolling across the land outside, he thought about how strange life could be. He had thought he was losing everything, but instead, he had found everything he never knew he wanted. The ranch that had once been a burden had become a legacy. The woman who had run from one marriage had found love in another, and the storm that had seemed like an ending had really been a beginning. Sometimes Tom realized the best things in life came disguised as disasters. Sometimes you had to lose everything to find out what really mattered. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, hope showed up on your doorstep in a torn wedding dress, asking for nothing but a chance to start over.